Hey, how's it going? Hanging out by the dumpster again, I see. Well, we've got episode 10 queued up and ready to go. We have the engine to install and prep and all of that kind of stuff. And then, you know, hopefully a little less talk, a lot more action. That should be a song. Anyway, coming out of the cold, Pete's sake. Well, the last time you saw me finish up all of the sheet metal on the, well, I'd say all of it, you know, the bulk of it, 3 actually quite large pieces. And I've got those installed, and you might notice, I mean, there's a critic in every crowd, right? You know, look at how scratched and fingerprinty all of this is. It doesn't look beautiful. Well, guess what? There's going to be some sound deadener, mat, and carpet right over top of that. So who cares? Take that. Anyway, I indulge myself. So, from here, the next thing on the list is this big old beast right here. So, this is the old rear main that when I took off was clearly leaking down at the bottom, down past the outside part of the seal. Whoever put this in did not put any gasket sealer on it. And so it just leaked past. It may have been, you know, whoever the engine builder was, it just overlooked it. You know, it happens. You can know what you're doing, and sometimes you just forget a step. Well, in this case, it was the step of making sure that was sealed up properly. So I'm going to pop that on, clean this up, put that back on, and put the starter on, and then start basically cleaning up the front accessory drive. I've got to take these headers off and swap sides on those, and then we'll get the transmission bolted up, and then, you know, kind of swoop it into the car. So, yeah, I don't know what I'm waiting for. I'm just delaying, jibber-jabbering, flapping my gums when I just need to be working. So, here I go. Hey, I am sorry. I was not ignoring you. I just got my head into the project and forgot to bring you in because, you know, sometimes that happens. Let me finish cleaning this up and I will catch you up with everything that I was doing to get the engine in the car, which is super exciting. I am super excited about that. So anyway, I kind of made a mess with coolant. So I'm going to clean this up and yeah, then follow me over there and we'll take a peek. All right. I actually meant to mention one thing on the back side here before we get to the engine. Hang on, camera guy, for Pete's sake. All right. I did have to notch out a little bit on both sides for the, you know, shock bushing there. And did I have to do anything else crazy? I don't think so. I just had to notch that out on both sides because it wouldn't sit flat. So, well, I guess there wasn't very much. Let's just move on then. To the engine, it is in the car. Don't be deceived. It's not bolted in, and the transmission is just kind of resting on the cross piece. So I have to put the transmission mount in, bolt up the engine mounts, and then we get the exciting part of attaching all of the systems to the car. So I got a little ahead of myself yesterday and attached the throttle cable, routed the clutch cable, which it's going to need to be finished up. I was just playing around because I got excited. So hook up the power steering, mount the battery, you know, all that stuff. This is all exciting stuff because once we do that, we're going to see if she'll fire off after we put oil in it, of course, and the transmission because there's no oil in it. Actually, I'll probably put the radiator on first because I don't feel like, you know, spraying whatever coolant's left in there. If there's any in the pump, I just don't feel like, you know, making another mess. So, yeah, we'll get there. We've got the remote oil filter mount, and the other side of it is where the oil filter used to sit, but of course with the header or the exhaust, that would not be possible. That's why it had to be relocated. Also, because of the exhaust, I had to trim some tabs off of here, and then down at the bottom, I just went ahead and trimmed a tab that came out off of there just for clearance. You can see the headers are facing forward now, and I don't have the right size belt. So basically all I did was eliminate the air conditioning, which that just wrapped around. So I'll just a shorter belt, and it's all I should need there. So put in a new temperature. Because of the gauges, actually we'll walk over there in a second. Because of the gauges, they require different senders, so oil pressure and water temperature, and they have their own wiring that eventually will make its way into the gauge part. So it's, yeah, it's just a matter of routing, making everything happy, and yeah, it's a tight fit. I'll just tell you that. But it's super cool. You know, at not every point, but there are points in the project where you start getting excited again. Not that you really lost your excitement, but your level ratchets up a little bit because you see like, hey, it's a car. So what else? Oh yeah, the gauges. Let's walk over here. So because I was figuring out the you know, sensors and all of that, I decided to mount the gauges. They give you directions on like prefabbing a wiring thing, but it doesn't really apply to these gauges. It's for a different set, but it's not rocket science. You know, you have your input wires, you've got your power wires for lights, you know, and dimming, and then you've got your inputs, and like this, see, oh yeah, like this is the clock, has a little button, I suppose, for setting the time, you know. We've got a little button here on the speedometer, probably for changing functions on the little screen on the inside, and the tach and stuff like that. So, and this is a GPS speedometer. So you've got the GPS antenna plugs into there. So these are the gauges that I went with. You can see a little bit of the vision of what I have going on. It's gonna look so classy. It already does. I mean, it's amazing. So my goal is to take, since I'm using, at least for now, the ignition switch off of the Mustang, I'm not gonna have any switches up here for, you know, power on, push button, all of that. Try to leave this as clean as possible. In fact, even though the buttons that set functions on these gauges, I'm going to be putting under the dash, like under the whatever gauge it is, so that I don't have really a bunch of little buttons marring up the dashboard. So yeah, it's coming along. Yeah, it's gonna look great. The seats are done. I got those reupholstered. And what was the other thing? Oh, the door, I had door cards made for the insides of the doors to match the seats and the dash. So carpet is gonna be black. So we haven't talked about paint color yet, have we? Well, we're not going to. Psych. We'll get there, you know? We'll get there. And also wheels. They haven't shown up yet, so I can't show them to you. So we'll just kind of take this a step at a time. But you can kind of see what's in my mind as far as the interior goes. All right, well, let's get to wiring and hooking up and putting the drive shaft in and engine mounts, trans mounts, all of that stuff, and start hooking stuff up. I'm excited. doing here? I hear you. Let's just talk about it a minute. I actually had to switch gauge fittings. If you remember, we talked about the new gauges take a different sender, and I had inadvertently replaced this one, which this is the sender that talks to the computer and tells it how hot the coolant is. This is the gauge sender, so I just put that one back and put my new gauge sender right there. So did that. Of course, on the Mustang, the battery was mounted up here, so I had to, basically what I did is took the negative that went to the battery and grounded it to the frame. And then the positive that went to the battery, that's actually running straight to the starter. It's just in the harness running straight to the starter. So since I have the relocated battery running straight to the starter as well, I left that in there and ran it up to the fuse box to power that. And then this is the line I had to tie into that comes from the alternator for charging. And the end just wasn't quite long enough to attach here, so I had to splice in, get a little more length there. That's really almost the only wiring thing that I've had to lengthen or do anything like that. Everything else I've been able to work around. So I also had to refasten this on here because the bracket that it's held to, they just said rivet it to this cross member. Well, it was too much for the rivets. So I put some nut certs in and bolted it down, and now it's not going anywhere. So the next thing in the book, which it's not actually super clear, they kind of list some things. You don't have to do them in order. It's just a matter of hooking up the systems to the engine. I have the fuel lines. So my fuel from the tank comes up here, and I'll run fuel lines over to these. What I'll do is there's that plastic line that shrunk onto this nipple or nub here. So I'll cut that off there. I'll do the same here so that I can retain the connector, but then I'll just clamp my new lines on with some high pressure hose clamps on both ends actually. So I really wanted to use these lines original to the car, but the ends, well, they're just not going to work with what I have. So you can't re-put an end. I already tried it on the back side. You can't re-put an end on these. They're hard plastic, and they're like heat shrunk onto there. So yeah, that's what I'm doing. I'll run my new fuel lines, hook that up, and then start routing my power steering lines from the power steering pump. I did, once I hooked everything up, made sure I had no open ends anywhere that would ground out. I did touch the battery post to the battery. You know, I touched this and I didn't get any snapping, nothing. So that tells me we're still okay. I've got it grounded out here and everything run. So very shortly we'll have power to the system, but for now I'm just doing all of the mechanical hookups I've got to run my hoses to the oil filter, remote oil filter thing there. And I'm waiting on a belt to come in, and we're really close to having this hooked up and, you know, moving on to the cooling system. So I say close, you know, there's a lot of work to do, and a lot of it's kind of futzy, you know, it takes a while. It's, yeah, but it's not a lot of work. It's just maybe time and consuming work. So I am gonna keep hammering away at it, but it's so fun to see the drivetrain in the car. Oh, let me show you this too. So you don't think everything goes perfect, nothing goes wrong. So if you notice right there, there's a drip on the floor. I've got and I've been fighting this, the line that goes from the axle up to there, it's leaking. I think it's the copper washer. It's not sealing, so I have to take that off and fix a leak. So, you know, there's real life for you, leaking things. And I'm also surprised that I didn't have any sparking, but who knows? I might have a blown fuse somewhere because I didn't hear it because I had the TV on and, you know, kind of loud, so. All right, well, you're up to date, so I hope you're happy. Captain's log, Mr. F project. I've succeeded in not much more than making a large mess. Also, I haven't had lunch yet, and it's way past lunch. We have some problems. Not problems. Every problem is simply a solution waiting to happen. Let's move into the project. Don't pay any attention to that. So let's just go into this a little bit so you can kind of see the struggles I'm dealing with. No, okay? Let's ignore the fact that I haven't made any progress. Except that I have, you just can't see it. It's all in my head. So the engine needs to be hooked up to the coolant system. So the radiator is sitting over there. I was kind of test fitting it in and out and in and out because also I am concerned about routing of power steering lines, coolant lines, and also the power steering cooler, which has its own lines. Trying to make sure everything's going to fit and how it's going to fit, where the lines are going to go so I don't mount something up and then I can't mount the other thing because of the thing that's doing the thing. So I'm kind of in my mind building it out from the outside in, when in reality, when it comes to the end of the day, I will be physically building it from the inside out. So I've figured out that my high pressure line from the power steering pump will reach and fit where it needs to go, and it even doesn't look terrible. It's just loop around. The low pressure line, this is the low pressure line going back to the pump. It's too short for wherever the cooler has to mount. And also the cooler has arms that come out pretty far, so, but I can lengthen this hose. It won't even be that much, no problem. Next problem. This is the high pressure, or no, this is the low pressure line that goes also to the cooler, but it's like way too long, and it's way over here where the cooler, it'll be mounted somewhere over here. So my solution to that is going to be putting an AN fitting adapter here, running an AN out to 3/8 nipple, and then I can route that. So I will just do away with the factory low pressure line coming from the steering rack. So I think that problem is solved. I have those parts coming. But let's move back out to the radiator. Hang on. Are you following me so far? Are we on the same page? Because I can stop and make it even more confusing. Just stick around. Stick with me here just for a minute. It'll be worth it. I don't promise, but you know, I have to say that. Okay, so the radiator. My goal was to use the 1994 radiator fan shroud. I actually really like this fan shroud because it covers quite a bit. The fan that came with the Factory 5 kit is just like this, and it goes right up against there, so you're not pulling as much air through the radiator. But as I tried to fit this radiator in, I realized that this fill tube, or you know, whatever you call it, it has the vent tube coming off the side of it. I realized that it actually hits, well, it hits this. So you can put it on the one side, but then the radiator is moved way over here. You can stick it up on this side, but then your mounting is kind of messed up, and then the radiator sticks way out over here. I could bring it all down kind of this way, but I'm not sure where my clearance is issues anyway. Struggling with that radiator. So the 93 radiator, the fill is actually like right here, and it sits pretty low. So there's no, doesn't really get in the way. So kind of like I did with the starter on the engine, I also got to thinking this radiator appears to be the original radiator, which is 30 years old. Even if it's not original, it's original-ish. It's got the plastic ends, and it's a one core and all of that. It may have been replaced at some point, and it's good. I could probably sell it to somebody. They'd get a good deal. I'd be able to get rid of it. It's not leaking, works fine. But I went ahead and ordered, I paid $200 for it from late model Resto. And it's a full aluminum radiator, so I don't have the plastic ends on it. And it's also a 93, so it will fit up on here perfectly. The fill tube won't interfere. Everything will work as far as where the inlet and outlet are and all that, and it will fit. Also, I think it's a 3-core. So, because this radiator is so difficult to swap out once you have the car built, because it kind of, the bottom end is kind of riveted to the nose of the car and whatnot, and this is up here, it's a chore. I thought I should just, kind of like I did with the starter, I should just go ahead, put a new one in. I didn't want to do that, but you know, I think it's the right choice. So, I am, however, going to try to still use the fan shroud. I will modify it because also it plugs directly into here. It has a high speed, low speed that the computer controls. So I'm gonna try to use that on the front of it. So I've got that coming. So we've got the AN fitting for the steering, the hose, we've got that coming. We've got the radiator coming. Moving in, I have everything I need to finish this up, so I'll probably knock that out. I'm waiting on some fuel line to come in to finish my fuel hookups, but I've also got that figured out. Not a big deal. So, am I forgetting something? Probably. I don't know. I've been sorting through all of my boxes as I'm doing this, trying to figure out what I have. In the directions, and I don't have it or anything, but in the directions, you can see this is more of the standard style radiator. It'd be on this side where the fill tube is. You can't really see it back there, but let's see. And this is the style fan that they supply you with, so it basically just bolts right to the radiator, but it's only pulling from where the fan is. That's why I kind of like that shroud better. So I'm not going to use their fan or anything. I'll find it. Stick with me. Let's page through the book here. See this, they have you mounting it right on these tubes here, which the radiator I bought will work for that very well. And this is kind of how they fasten it down below. You can't really see it very well, but that's kind of normal. Hang on, let's see if I can find it. Oh yeah. So upper radiator hose, supposedly this little junction with the fill area is what they give you, but I don't have that. So they have it mounted here on this particular one. The inline filler neck, again, maybe I'll stumble across it, but I have been looking and I haven't found it. So maybe it doesn't apply to mine. You can see in this picture where someone did use the radiator with the plastic ends on it. They have a little different mounting system going on. But the problem is they don't show the other side of the transmission or the other side of the radiator in the pictures. See, every picture shows a different radiator. Here's an aluminum one. Okay, well that's fine. So anyway, that was kind of the long story to explain my thought process as what I'm doing, how the directions kind of make it difficult. The forums, everyone has their own opinion, you know? Opinions are like armpits. Everybody has one. It's just up to you whether you want to, you know, smell the other guys. That's probably not how that saying goes. Kind of went off the rails there. I need some lunch. So, I think we're gonna call it quits for episode 10. And thanks for hanging out with me. I've got some more research to do. but I'm not going to let it slow down the process. It's just that's part of the process. So, yeah, hope to see you around next time. And that's